Hello, welcome to the Alone Show. I'm your host, Johnny Alone, and this episode I have brought on regulars, Faiffy and, maybe eventually, Andrew Shatkin. Now, as for our guest, he was born in North Macedonia, but currently lives in London in the United Kingdom. He is a TEDx speaker, international award-winning author, speaker, filmmaker, life and business transformation coach specializing in human behavioral and authority on the physiology of breaking through perceived limits, maximizing human and business potential, and operating at high levels of achievement, balance, and energy. Oh, that was a lengthy one. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Tony Salimi.
Hello.
Great to have you here. So, how's life?
Life's been incredibly busy, but also wonderful. We've got a better weather outside here in London, and I just got back from Spain.
Oh, cool. And have you been up to much recently?
Yes, I've been teaching my training program called Vital Planning in Spain, and recently I pretty much been busy creating some transformational products for my clients, but also I just finished my 6th book.
Wow. 6th book? That is wild.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me more about the books you've written.
Well, in 2008, 2009, following the big financial crisis, back then I used to work in technology. I used to run massive technology programs. So, as the crisis worsened, I was the last one to be made redundant in the company I was working back then. And it's almost like I had this deeper desire to combine almost 20 years of deep studies, science, research, engineering, psychology, technology, and to go out there and help people. So I did a form of little mini MBA course, and through which I first published my first book, A Path to Wisdom, how to live a balanced, healthy, and peaceful life. And following the publishing of that book, it went global. It won many global awards. I started to really work and train as a coach, as a consultant, and speak at amazing events around the world. And then I started really noticing the changes, the transformation that people are having as a result of the methodology that they were using, that I shared in the book, and the principles which I shared in the book. So that gave me sort of even more confidence into going out there and making a bigger difference in the world. And being an engineer, I love solving problems. And one of the things, as more technology and social media took over, I saw how people are even more lonely. And, we had increased cases with suicide, depression, anxiety, anger, divorce rates. People are not talking anymore on the streets or to a stranger when you travel somewhere. So I really wanted to tackle the science of loneliness, and why is it that people go in those states of self-destruction, and how loneliness pretty much impacts your mental, your emotional, your physical well-being. And, it's been proven even with a lot of research and study out there that loneliness is worse than even smoking a whole pack of cigarettes every single day. So I wrote my 2nd book, which was #Loneliness, the virus of the modern age, to give people another tool for really coming out of that social isolation or mental isolation, and pretty much support the campaign to end loneliness. Because, it is something that back in Macedonia, when I was young, I met Mother Teresa, and she was huge on that. So I really wrote this book about loneliness back then.
Okay.
Peter, I just wanted to introduce myself. Is that all right?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes, Tony, my name is Andy Shatkin. I'm a sort of help Peter in his broadcast, or I'm a co-host. And I wonder if you could fill me in, because I was a little late coming in, and I'm really sorry. You've written 2 books, right?
I've actually written 5 books, and this is the 6th book I've just completed.
That's fantastic.
Those are the first 2 books.
I'm very enthusiastic. I'm very interested in books, and I think it's great you've done that. Tell me, you say you're from Macedonia, right?
Yes, I was born in Macedonia. I moved to England during the civil war in former Yugoslavia at the age of 19.
That is northern Greece, correct?
Well, yes, it's located over northern Greece, but it's a country on its own now.
Oh, it's a country on its own. Now, tell me, Peter, can you fill me in on the names of these books, if you don't mind, just for a few minutes?
Yeah, so...
Sure.
So go ahead,
So
Tony. What are the names of the books?
The first book is It's a Path to Wisdom, How to Live a Balanced, Healthy, and Peaceful Life. Then I wrote the next book called #Loneliness, The Virus of the Modern Age. Then I co-authored a book with a few other global leaders called Fit for Purpose Leadership, book number 3, where I talk about burnout, specifically in the corporate world. Then I wrote my next book called The Unfakeable Code, which I wrote it during COVID. Take back control, lead authentically, and live freely on your terms. And then I felt called to write some poems, which I've been writing for a while in the background.
Great, that's wonderful.
So I published those poems as well. And I just finished my next book called A Path to Excellence.
Well, I got to get these books. I think I'm sure they're of great value and interest. And I'm always interested in someone who's creatively contributing to society, which you're doing. I have to ask you, Tony, you're right about the phenomenon in our present, at least in Western society, of loneliness. Do you believe that the reason for this might be this takeover of our culture, phasing out print and moving into electronic presentations? Do you think that it may be the reason?
Well, I mean, you hit a nail on the head in there, because basically as the technology started really taking over our daily lives and everything that we do today involves technology, people lost this connection with themselves, but also with the people, being able to simply have a conversation without technology. So we become more reliant to technology, but there are many other elements that infuse loneliness. You know, when we have economical crisis, people can withdraw and can commit tremendous loneliness. When your partner dies, for instance, so if you've been with your partner for many years, there's a massive loneliness in the process of grieving. You know, when you go into the corporate world and, you know, you work like I do with different executives and teams, and I work myself in the corporate world, when you have people where perhaps they are not extrovert and being able to express themselves freely with other people and authentically, and they are introverts, there's some loneliness in that gap. You know, when you go, I take the underground and sometimes even the public transport, or when I travel around the world, people are simply not talking to themselves.
They're not,
no. You go to restaurants, there's a whole family and they're all on their devices, not talking to each other.
So I think you really have got a real major point here. I have noticed this, and you noticed it too. People do not converse. They do not engage in conversation. Not only do they not engage in conversations, but they don't talk about anything of substance, any major intellectual issue or thought is not talked about. Correct?
Absolutely. I mean, we have seen over the last, let's say, 10 years, the different changes that we see, whether it's in political sphere, whether it's on global issues, whether it's environment, whether it's education, whether it's healthcare, NHS. You know, my partner works for the NHS. There are millions of issues that nobody's really talking about it. But also at a family level, at a social friendship level, exactly what you said, Andrew. People don't have a substantial conversation that leads to change or leads to deeper connection with somebody else.
You mentioned something else that you really got to the point here. In Western society, at least in the United States, people do not engage in friendship. They do not. They have no friends. They don't want it. They don't want any connections. They don't want to know anybody. They don't want to converse with anybody. They don't want an interchange. They don't want anything to do with anybody. Correct?
Yes, I mean, in the #Loneliness book, I even went to study some of the top scientists who actually study loneliness. And, when Mother Teresa came to America, when a reporter stopped her, and she actually shared saying that, America might be rich when it comes to products, when it comes to, lifestyle and stuff like that, but it's very poor with human connection. And some of the data suggests that if you were to measure loneliness back in the 2000 to 2010, there was 1 in 5 people you could confined about your issues, stuff like that. But after 2010, it's 0. So you're exactly right, Andrew, that a lot of people in America are pretty much isolated from one another.
Now, you gave a very valid reason, this electronic culture, which has, I'm not saying it isn't good or bad, good or bad about it. It is what it is, but it has taken over our society, essentially.
Yes, I mean, I'm an engineer. I study science, but also I love spirituality. So, while I appreciate what you said as well, because technology can enable us to do amazing things.
It can.
However, people have lost that balance. They have lost, and majority of people use technology in a way that is self-destructive. They're not using it for the greater good of their well-being, their society, their family, and global issues. So, technology can be very, very dangerous, especially now that we have behavioral science technology. People can end up spending hours and hours wasting on technology and never creating a human connection.
Let me ask you this, Tony. This is a very interesting conversation. I'm really finding it quite useful, and you're filling me in on a lot of areas that I may have given some thought to. Do you think 2 factors for this loneliness is the secularization of our society? Religious belief. I'm not saying you have to be religious. I don't say that. But when you do not have a religious input, it is another factor in separating people.
Well, I mean, all of those things separate people, Andrew. It's very sad to observe that we have political leaders who, even in today's world, they use the old methodology, divide and conquer.
Right.
When you look at how much amazing work humanity has done, how many amazing books by amazing people out there, how much training is available out there, it's really amusing for me to see that leaders compete with another leader instead of actually leading authentically. This is why during COVID, I sat down and I said, at the beginning of the COVID, I knew this is going to last for years. So most people said it's going to pass. Most people didn't even think in UK back then that we're going to go into lockdown. I predicted this 3 months before anything happened. So during that period, I sit down and I said, what are some of the global issues that the pandemic will actually create? And as a result of that, it really inspired me to write about authenticity. And authenticity and loneliness, isolation, segregation, all of this is linked. Why? Because the more you polarize a person, the more the mind is polarized, the more biases the mind it has, the more isolated you become. And also the more you divide people. But, when you ask people, whether it's somebody from a specific religion or somebody from a specific culture, they all believe in love. They all believe in connection. They will speak the words, but they don't act the words.
Let me ask you this, Tony. I'm sure you're a writer and you know this far better than me. There has been a decline. There was a time when people read very, very, what is considered today somewhat difficult, complex works. It could be Tolstoy, whoever it is.
I read Tolstoy.
Yeah, yes, they did read those books. Now, maybe the reading public was more elite. I don't know. But books like that, when people don't read those substantive kind of books, it divides the society even more. They're not using their minds. When you don't use your mind, everybody, the whole society is pulled down.
Yes, I mean, Andrew, that's a beautiful point. Why? Because I believe in nurturing our mind. Today society has been almost reprogram people to, pretty much look outside of themselves rather than sort of nurturing one of the biggest I would say, creators of our reality, which is our mind. And, I love reading books. And, back when I was working in engineering and technology, I read so many books on different subjects.
Right.
And for me, my mind enriched, my body, mind, and heart healed as a result of so many amazing authors out there, both from West and East, because I love to have this objective view about life and being able to go and study in detail. But nowadays, I don't see people having books, especially the young generations.
No, they don't.
Hours and hours on their devices. But also what I see, Andrew, some of my clients are very affluent clients. Those people spend on a daily basis 1 to 2 hours reading, which is something that inspired me 30 years ago to pursue the path to excellence, something that I'm writing today. And I just finished that book. And I believe with all of my heart, the book is what transforms our minds. And if we nurture our minds with books consistently, we open up our so many possibilities of way of thinking and connecting and getting closer together, but also collaborating and also solving the very same global issues we collectively create.
Let me ask you this, Tony. I read a book written about 1943. It was before television, okay, by a fellow named Mortimer Adler. He was a University of Chicago professor. He said it's called How to Read a Book. And he said in his book that people who depend for their knowledge acquisition on images, whether movies, television, at that time they didn't have computers really. He says it's a drug. He says you are being subject to being drugged. And he made the comment that you made, that no learning, any complex thinking must occur in connection with print. That's my opinion.
Yes, it's this a valid another wonderful valid point. Why? Because while visuals are important, they don't actually encourage critical thinking.
No,
this is what's been happening in the society. We are bombarded by visuals. All you have to do is go to Times Square in New York. That's a perfect example of visual rape. I call it a visual rape. And I talk about it in some of my books, that basically, when you are visually raped, and if you don't have the mind, and if you don't have the programming within the mind, because you've read so many different genres of books, and you have some kind of updated programming in your head, this visual rape can affect you mentally, can affect you emotionally, can affect you how you view the world, can affect you how you speak to people and how you perceive reality.
Let me ask you this, Tony. You're a writer, and you have chosen to still function in print, okay, in terms of your thinking and presentation. However, do you believe that we are moving to a society based on images?
Well, we have been having society based off images. However, now this society is pretty much, I would say, exponentially overloaded with images. Not just with images, with sound as well, because we get sound input and visual input every single day. And, it's sort of, while, again, I love technology for the wonderful gifts it brings us.
That's right.
What people, it's wise to do is to encourage their young children, but also anybody out there, whether you're adult or young, to daily devote some time to read. Reading is extremely important for our most wonderful organ, our brain. So, it gives you I see, for me, brain is like a library. So, if you ask somebody when I speak or I train somewhere, especially if I'm invited in schools to encourage children to read, I ask them a simple question. So if you go into a room with one book and you go to a room with a library of books, and let's say you have different problems, and let's say you have 100 problems that the library gives you, but one book doesn't give you, which one would you go? It's a no-brainer for them to choose the library.
Let me ask you this, Tony. I want to get your thoughts on this. Tony, Jamie, Peter, do you mind my asking these questions?
Yeah, sure, go ahead.
Okay. Do you believe that technology will develop the brain, I think, in a certain kind of thinking, correct? A certain
technology,
mode of thinking.
Yes, technology works on certain parts of the brain.
That's right.
Yes.
Do you think we are moving into a new concept of literacy where technology will be the mode of literacy or definition of literacy, and books will no longer be as much required or needed or even consulted as they used to be?
If you haven't read #Loneliness, I will definitely recommend you to read #Loneliness. And in there's a specific chapter called Technological Armageddon. And on that, I actually delivered a TED Talk. So you can even check my TEDx talk on the TED platform.
I'd like to see it.
Called Technological Armageddon. And in there, it's pretty much the reason I delivered this talk. I met with the TED conference organizer, and he opened up the book straight into the chapter, Technological Armageddon, without even reading it. He saw loneliness, technology, and said to me, "You're going to open my conference with this talk." So, and I delivered that talk. And in there, it's almost like a warning to humanity. Basically that currently and in the last, because this was, I published the book in 2016. This is like 6 years down the line. But the book is relevant today and it will be relevant in the future. Why? Because more and more we're getting closer to the gap where artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence. And before this was a science fiction. Now it's no longer science fiction. You know, we're only looking at Elon Musk, where successfully they implanted a piece of technology that can direct the pig what to do and tell it where to go. And the next step is for those trials to go into humans. And, you know, if we go forward 10 years, 20 years down the line, we'll be at a point where pretty much we'll be able to download somebody else's brains in our head. So while this used to be in science fiction, we're actually getting closer to that science fiction being our reality. So, you know, the whole thing about books, literacy, learning, everything will be changing so rapidly that society is not prepared for that change.
What is going to, well, let me ask you this, Tony. I know you can give me an insight in answer to this question. Unless we move into the world of young people, their world is different from that of an adult, okay? I think. But if they are not guided to books and have a sole diet of technology, what's going to happen to them?
I mean, we've already seen those results, Andrew. We have children, I mean, especially in America, the biggest problem is you get children who get prescribed very serious drugs. Okay, and you know, I've had clients who work with me. Their 8-year-old child has been subscribed with antidepressant drugs. So you know, we have all of those issues. We have the issues when it comes to dropping literacy rates in America, for instance. Because I'm involved in a documentary called "The Truth About Reading," and I'm executive producer of that documentary. It will be coming out in September. It will be released. And you have all of those anger issues, all of those gun issues, all of those political divisions, religious, creed divisions, and societal problems. That at the root of that, it's when people are not being encouraged to develop their brain. And the only way to develop your brain, your awareness, your cognition, your critical thinking, is for sure reading and learning. Those are two things that we must do every single day.
But go ahead. But if adults don't intervene with children's diet of knowledge gaining through technology, unless there's an intervention in our school system or something, I would assume it'll occur in the school system. What is going to happen to these kids?
Well, the reality, they're going to become numb. You know, I believe that even today we have children living in a coma which are not in touch with reality. You know, they are living this illusion of what reality is.
That's
and
right.
the longer we leave that, the bigger the problems will end up in education system, in leadership, in business, in society, in schooling, in healthcare. Because they're all interconnected. You know, when you have a child who's not empowered to develop their cognition and be self-aware about those issues in themselves, they become pretty much a drag on society. And
yeah, go ahead. I'm listening.
And when you have more children like that, you know, every aspect of society will be impacted negatively, not positively. So we have a choice to make and consistently to make to ensure education of many issues start at a very young age.
Let me ask you this, Tony. You give me a lot of very insights and information, which I'm very grateful. However, I'll say this, technology is not verbal, correct? It is not verbal thinking. And when people don't verbally think in their minds hold on, I have to see. Hello? When people don't verbally think in their mind, what kind of thinking are they going to do?
Yes, not just what kind of thinking, but actually there'll be a decrease of their brain, frankly. You know, what people don't realize, like, for instance, recently there was a published on BBC that 2% of the brain mass has been lost in majority of the people who had COVID. Now, when we link that with learning, when we link that with consistently feeding your brain, if children are not reading, there'll be a decrease in the brain mass.
Let me ask you this, Tony. I want to get your insights on this. If the brain has a sole diet of technology, you could probably tell me better than anybody what will happen to that person's thinking.
Well, as I said, you know, this danger ahead of us, it's present, it's ahead of us. Why? Because let's say the children are consistently bombarded with technology. They will use their sense of identity. They will use the sense of being what it means to be a human being. You know, and in the TEDx talk, there's a phrase line that the only jewel in the crown of life is love. And, you know, the world is not lacking technology. It's not lacking resources. It's not lacking ideas. It's not lacking, you know, places to go. It's lacking human connection and love.
That's right. Do you
and with
believe,
love and human connection, we can change the world.
I think you made some very good points. I think you really honed in on a very important point, that technology maybe, I'm not sure, you could tell me more about this, may be a barrier to love.
Well, as I said, it can be a door opener. For instance, today with technology, we can go into a dating website and meet somebody, for sure. But it's not a substitute for the real connection that leads to love. It's a door opening. If you are that a lonely person, it gives you an opportunity to meet anybody anywhere in the world.
But is that a connection, a dating site? That is an impersonal encounter where you barely know each other. So how can there be love in this situation?
That's why I said it's only a door opener. It's not the ingredients for love. It does not replace the human connection that leads to love. But it can actually open a door that, let's say 100% we have love, technology can be the 1% that pretty much, if you're lonely, you don't know anybody, you have more opportunities for you to meet somebody anywhere around the world and start that process. But it's not something that you do via mobile phone. Mobile phone or technology can enable you the first meet, but it does not create everything that you need to create that bond that eventually leads into beautiful, loving relationship.
Why, Tony? You answer this question. I know you'll be able to answer it. Why can't people find a connection and find love in their immediate environment? Why do they have to go to a dating site? Why do they have to put in a personal ad? Why do they have to take recourse to all these artificial methodology? Why can't they simply connect with someone in the immediate environment?
Because over the years of developing the technology, what technology has done has made a lot of people lazy, but also has made a lot of people introverts, and also it has made a lot of people be suspicious of people. And the list goes on. So, you know, it's in a way we've been programmed to think that technology is the only way we can connect. And that is the problem. So technology, as I said, is just a door opener, but it's one of a trillion opportunities and possibilities. But
why can't that person in their immediate physical environment connect in love with another person?
Well, there are many different things. You know, love chemistry. I will tell you one thing that my mom and my dad taught me. And that is that, you know, you don't know love until you've been with that partner for 10 years.
Right.
And when you go through all the in and outs of relationships, the good and the bad, and you consistently grow together through the good and the bad, eventually that will lead you in love. The problem is majority of the people think love is one-sided illusion, one-sided equation, which means you feel love only when somebody supports you. But the moment that person, that partner challenges you, you feel like they're rejecting you, you withdraw, you do all of those different emotional states that come from your inner hurt and all the different protective mechanisms. Love is a fusion of all of those things. But for the person who wants love, they have to overcome the mental barrier of duality and the way we interact with duality. A lot of people have the concept of yin and yang, but yin and yang means fusion of the bad and the good. And when you are able, two conscious partners can go through this process together, they can create truly beautiful relationship. Unfortunately, most people in the society haven't been taught those principles. That's why I wanted to create new methodologies, new psychology, a new way of thinking so people can come closer together and also can overcome many of the physical problems that are emotionally induced.
Let's get an answer. Let me give you provide me an answer. I sometimes will look at the older culture, the older movies, black and white movies in the 40s and 30s, and the shows that were presented. What was presented at that time was not sex, but romantic love. Romantic love moved our society for a long, long time, maybe 1,000 years, possible. Romantic love was an essential element of our thinking system. And if you look at those movies, until very recently, romantic love was love, not sex. What is featured today is sex, right?
Well, I would say it's a mixture of both, Andrew, because you still have some great rom-com comedies and romantic films, but also you have a lot of films where they actually promote sex, or sex is not even the problem in today's society. I think when you see majority of the movies, young people take this illusion of wealth, what wealth means, and then also create decisions around the relationship when it comes to the lifestyle of this person. Until they meet the person, they are nothing like what they actually show on social media. I work with certain clients who are influencers, but in reality, they go through depression, they go through anger, through frustrations, through conflict, through money problems, or everything else that they do not share online. And when this person is interested in this person, and when they meet in reality, there's no match. So, while in today's world, TVs and movies have upgraded themselves in all different levels of actually showing what movies are, I believe that the heart recognizes true romance. And, we know those feelings of butterflies. Those are something we all have it. But the problem again comes, we have been taught to numb our own feelings. So that we become numb.
That's right. It's true. Let me ask you. You raised a good point, Tony. Peter, I hope I'm not trying to be rude or anything, but
no, it's fine. It's fine.
Let me ask you this: isn't our society where the emphasis is on money and materialism? To me, that is destructive of love.
I would agree halfway with you, Andrew. The reason being is sort of the premises of my teachings is nothing is missing. But also that you are born to be great, that you are born with this gift of God, whether you call it God, universe, energy, whatever it might be, it does not matter. We're all referring to the same thing. We have this incredible intelligence in ourselves, and we have two worlds that we belong to, our material and our spiritual world. And for me, I believe any individual who empowers their spiritual self, their mental self, their emotional self, their financial self, their business career, socially, live a more fulfilling life. Why? Because, I hear a lot of people, universe is abundant, but then they struggle to pay their bills, they have mortgages, they have debts, they get divorced because the money is an issue. So it's not the money the problem. The problem is the psychology of the person who, if they don't have a sound psychology and mindset and know how to use this form of material and spiritual intelligence called wealth for greater good of humanity, they're going to become even more evil person than they are. But the money is not the evil itself. It's whoever is using the money that makes it evil. So there's a clear distinction in there because, for instance, we look in America, we look in the UK. if you look at, let's say, the healthcare system, which is something I believe everybody should have, and also, let's say, education. Everybody deserves education. So without resources, you won't be able to provide those services. So that's why I believe, to empower yourself financially. Why? Because when I've done talks on financial freedom and helping people grow their finances, I ask simple question. So what do you want to do? Majority of people, they want to change somebody's life. They want to contribute. They want to, make the world better. And I ask them the next question. The next question is saying, so let's say you don't have money in your bank account, and let's say you have $1 billion in your bank account. Which one will give you the opportunity to serve more people?
That's right.
And the answer all comes back to 1 billion. So as necessary, I believe everybody, it's wise to empower themselves financially. Why? Because there's a greater benefit for all of us.
Let me ask you this, Tony. In the United States at this point, this is my personal view, when people look for a relationship, many, not all, I don't know, I can't say what is in anybody's mind. Many people go for looks and they go for money. And to me, those will not lead to love, but they do. Those are the benchmarks that some people, not everybody, that some employ in terms of finding a partner.
In all of my books, especially in the Unfakeable Code book, Take Back Control, Lead Authentically, Live Freely on Your Terms, I talk how we as human beings, each one of us has authentic values. And authentic values means 8 billion people out there has 8 billion authentic values. And two people, if they don't know how to align those values, they'll end up in a very bad relationship. But if people know how the value alignment can actually lead to a very fulfilling relationship, it's really transformed people's lives. Now, somebody who has a value on wealth, for instance, and somebody who has a value on education, most of the time...
What if that person's values only how someone looks like?
Yes, but a majority of the people who have contradictory values and opposite values, they don't know how to communicate. So in the Unfakeable Code, I'm really sharing how you can communicate in anybody's values. Why? Because, those values, most people see them as challenging values. But there's the other part, which is the supporting values, which people are hidden. They have a hidden awareness of that. Just to give you an example, when I worked with a couple on their relationship, they were at the brink of divorce. Those are very successful people, which will cost them millions and millions to divorce. So they were referred to me. And then I hear the one individual and telling me how this person is all the bad person. And then I'm hearing the other person, how this person is all bad person. But in that conversation, I pretty much extracted what their values are through what they were talking. And I sat them down, took them through my process, and guess what? They went back together.
Tony, let me put this question to you. Do you believe that a relationship will work or be successful where the value, as you say, the word is values, where the values of at least one or both partners is money and looks? Do you think that will work?
Well, there's 8 billion people. I can't really say one way or the other. Why? Because this is a very individual choice. Let's say somebody has a look. And this is, for instance, I've met a lot of models who I've had consultations around this. Right. Okay? So their value is their look. And I've met a lot of people who have the wealth, but they don't have the love. But they want the look. They want to look amazing when they go on the runaway or when they go on the street or when they go to a restaurant. That not necessarily means they have the love, but what they have a companionship of basically she gets the money, he gets the look and gets the love. So, but there's many ways of having a relationship, but true love is based on people who can integrate their values in a beautiful way so they can support and challenge each other as they go together, living and loving.
But you know better than me that wealth can be lost and looks can go.
Yes, absolutely.
So they're not going to be permanent values.
Yes, they are not just permanent values. They're not the ingredients that create a strong bond. But the ingredients
How
and things.
long do looks lists? They last till you're 35 or 38, at least for a woman.
Well,
Men maybe
And that is all we have for this episode. It was great having it's great having Tony on, talking about, well, a lot of things. And of course, as usual, Andrew asking a lot of questions. But yeah, I don't know why you just shut off like that, but yeah, that's pretty much it, I guess. And until next time, stay tuned for more.